He's back. He's back!
When it goes to 90s fighting games, there are several that are still going hard to this day, like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, and there are some that people do remember, like Darkstalkers and Clay Fighter. But today, I'll be talking about the one that I do remember for its tone and its atmosphere. Primal Rage, a fighting game that came out in 1994 and on consoles a year later. Anyways, the plot is about a cataclysm that happens to the Earth and ends almost all of life, causing humans to go back to primitive styles and worshiping these giant creatures like if they were gods while they fight for world domination. It used stop-motion technology for its animation, but unlike Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat where you played as otherworldly beings and also humans, you played as a giant beast like T-Rexes that shoot energy beams, an ape that could freeze stuff, a space dinosaur that could hypnotize things. It was a unique thing for a fighting game at the time, and today I'll be recapping the time that Primal Rage pissed off a mother. Literally. After Primal Rage was released and getting Game of the Year award, there was a huge marketing campaign that was done for the home console ports of the game. To remind you, the game was released on multiple systems at the time, including, but not limited to, the Sega Genesis, the Super Nintendo, the Sega Game Gear, the Game Boy, the Sega 32X, the Atari Jaguar via CD add-on, the 3DO, the Sony PlayStation, the Sega Saturn, Amiga, PC and Mac, and even the R-Zone and Tiger Electronic handheld. What the actual hell? They held a tournament known as the National Primal Rage Video Game Tournament, and it was located at Six Flags in 1995 to promote the console releases. They also had a board game, action figures, comic books, a novel, which I'll mention later on in the video, a whole ass album called All the Rage, which contains covers or remixes of the game's soundtrack, even some original songs like Primal Dance, Rockin' Rage, Gorge, and Rage in the City. My favorite has to be Talon's theme. But yeah, these songs are kinda cheesy but epic.
Rage in the city, come on and rage in the city. Rage in the city.
What's with 90s fighting games having the most catchiest music?
First note, so what's it gonna be? You're trapped in a new world of Street Fighter 3. The third chapter, so what's it gonna be? You're trapped in a new...
Anyways, the hype of the game was somewhat still continued, but went down a little. Around this time, they were working on a sequel, which would be known as Primal Rage 2, and it would be more improved from the first game, including new human avatars that could transform to the fighters from the first game. Anyways, enough with the history, now let's get into the meat and potatoes of this video, or should I say, the humans and pterodactyls of today's video. Or it's a pterodactyl. So just like any other edgy or violent fighting game in the 90s, Primal Rage included its own fatality system. First popularized in games like Mortal Kombat, this gameplay mechanic would occur after a player's opponent has been defeated and they could kill them in a brutal yet satisfying way. In other fighting games like Killer Instinct, they also would have this mechanic. Primal Rage also had it as well. In some of the arcade versions, each character would have 2 fatalities, but in the later 2.3 version of the game, each character would have a total of 3 fatalities. From what I know, most of the console ports have all the fatalities. Unlike Mortal Kombat where those games' fatalities were more brutal and gruesome, Primal Rage had some more darkly humored ones and a couple of brutal and gory ones. Like there's Sauron, where he has one where he literally jumps in the air and stomps on them. There's Talon, where he pulls a cane out and he literally rips out their heart, but he eats it. There's Vertigo, where she turns them into a cow. There's Armathon, where he literally creates electricity and destroys them. There's Diablo, where he just pulls a scorpion and just burns them. And then there's Blizzard, who smashes his opponent into the ground, which Mortal Kombat 3 may or may not have taken inspiration from. But most importantly, we're going to be talking about Chaos and his fatalities. Okay, so the first one is kind of alright. He just does a cannonball into a random pool of liquid. This could only occur if a background has some sort of like pool of water or something in that effect. The second one is him bobbing one of his projectiles and then eating it. And as for his last one, how do I say it?
This is about to get nasty.
That's the ticket.
Ugh, disgusting!
Yeah, that's right. Chaos pees on them. His urine is apparently acidic and is strong enough to not only create steam, but also disintegrate his opponent. But yeah, that's chaos, alright. This probably didn't lead to anything bad happening, right? As the story goes, around spring or summer of 1996, a mother named Ellie Ravella from Gilbert, Arizona, called on a radio show talking about her 14-year-old son playing Primal Rage, which she states that at first, she didn't really mind the game, but then when she saw her son pull off the urination fatality for Chaos, she got very mad about it and told her son to get rid of the game because of it. She then petitioned for the game to get pulled off of shelves at stores, stating that Primal Rage is, quote, overly gruesome and that, quote, kids shouldn't even be playing games where they are killing each other. Anyways, she ended up getting the at-the-time Senator Bob Dole to give his signature to remove the game, and it succeeded. The game was pulled off of shelves at Target, Best Buy, Walmart, and even JCPenney. Yeah, does anyone remember that place? Apparently around this time, Tracy Egan, a PR director for Williams Entertainment, who also was formerly at the time was with Time Warner Interactive, she ended up saying that they weren't worried about the situation since obviously they cared about their retailers as much as their customers, therefore they weren't going to sell them copies of the game in order to, prevent boycotts or protests from happening at the stores if they did. Secondly, they weren't really concerned because the game already made a lot of money, so they wouldn't be dealing with any financial issues with it. Also, apparently the game was sent to the ESRB after people protested that the game should have been given the much more M for mature or the AO for adults only rating for its content. But the game was still given a T for teen rating, no surprise, and some places like Best Buy started to sell the game, but not the Genesis version. Also, I like to mention that the person who talked about this situation in the gaming magazine also mentioned how parents complained about games like Mortal Kombat and Darkstalkers being too violent, causing them to be pulled off of shelves at stores, and this makes me more interested in playing Darkstalkers. Not gonna lie, I don't know why it makes me interested, and I don't know why the game received drama in the 90s, but I'll probably look into it for another video. Probably because of Morgan, isn't it?
Why are you running?
Retro time? Alrighty, rant time, but let's talk about this retrospectively before moving on. Firstly, saying that Primal Rage is overly gruesome is a bold claim since let's not forget the series that created the rating board in the first place. I mean, Mortal Kombat has some more brutal, gruesome, and even, more violent fatalities than Primal Rage. Secondly, what does she mean kids should be playing games where they kill each other? But yet again, isn't there the game Bomberman, which has a versus mode in it? Thirdly, this makes no sense for Best Buy to sell every other version of the game, but not the Sega Genesis version, unless it had an N rating, since almost every version, minus the Game Boy and Game Gear version, had all the blood and fatalities. Also, funnily enough, the Super Nintendo version of the game, if you try to do the fatality as Chaos, the game will disable it and a no sign will appear on screen. Fourthly, if she was that concerned about the blood and violence, why in the hell did she not disable it with the blood setting? The setting that frickin' disables the blood fatalities? The one they market?
Turn off the blood with the no gore play option.
I thought moms in the 90s were supposed to be these very intelligent and very powerful beings. Well, at least from what I heard in movies and shows. But yet again, this is the same era where people are complaining about Lara Croft's chest size and many Latino figures. But at the end of the day, it's up to the parents for what they want their child to watch or play, and I'm not gonna pretend like I didn't watch Family Guy or watch my siblings play Call of Duty Zombies when I was 9. Anyways, without all the way, let's continue the story. So yeah, people were protesting about this game, because due to this mom doing it, and at the time, Time Warner didn't really care about the situation, but later in 1996, when the Sega Saturn version of the game released, very weird because it was the last port of the game to be released, it had a very important message that aired on television.
We've created the following advert to cause the least offense by replacing certain distressing scenes.
Rage.
Primal Rage, one
Female parent.
of a game.
Yeah, that's right. The Chads at Time Warner made an advertisement to make fun of Ellie Rovella by having famous British DJ at the time, Simon Bates, act as a representative from the company in the commercial and then show footage of the game. But as they're about to fight, they quickly cut to footage of a family and say the game is, quote, one female parent of a game. Around 1996, Primal Rage kind of fell apart since Primal Rage 2 was cancelled despite its hype. There are also multiple reasons why it was cancelled. I'd recommend you watch these two videos about it, but in short, Atari and Time Warner kept getting bought by groups and changing their name throughout the 90s before being bought out by Midway, you know, the guys who made Mortal Kombat. And then they took one look at Primal Rage and went,
They're the same picture.
and cancelled the game, but several arcade cabinets were made and playtested in different areas, one of them in the Galloping Ghost Arcade in Brooksfield, Illinois, and can be played. A ROM of it has been dumped online, and a user named Gruntzilla94 made a special version of MAME known as MAME for Rage 2 that allows people to play the game, but in 2025, version 2.75 finally made the game playable without using MAME for Rage 2. It's worth playing, but to remind you, the game was unfinished and has a few bugs and hiccups here and there. A novel was made to promote Primal Rage 2, known as Primal Rage The Avatars, and action figures of Slash Fang and Necrosan, two new characters that were going to appear in the game, were also made. The Necrosan one goes for hundreds, and I mean hundreds of dollars on eBay. Just like most series from the 90s, it stayed there, and it lost popularity. Other than a small reference in Dexter's Laboratory and appearing in Midway Treasure 2004, and also a reference to one of the Mortal Kombat games, there's a small cult following for the game and for the series. I don't know. I feel like it's Primal Rage is one of those things that they should bring back nowadays for a new entry. Like, I feel like if they make like a new game or a film, it could be kind of like the Godzilla and Kong films. Just hear me out, by the way. A Spinosaurus and a Dilophosaurus would make really good fighters for a roster. But hey, at least there will never really be another game as unique as
Primal Rage.